bookworms. Jess the bookworm here. It was recently my birthday, and so I wanted to do a video, not just celebrating my birthday, but also celebrating some books' birthdays. I know books aren't born, but they kind of are when they're published, right? They are birthed into the world. So my birthday was this past Sunday, February 21st, and I turned 31. Ooh, old. And so I chose books that also turned 31. So we're going to be talking about some books that are essentially the same age as me. I'm going to be talking about them. I've read almost all of them. I am like 100 or a little bit less than 100 pages from finishing one of them. So I'll obviously tell you that when we get to it. But happy belated birthday to me and to these books. Let's get into it. So like I said, it was recently my birthday. I celebrated with my husband and with my baby kitty Marley, and also had like a little virtual party on just FaceTime with my parents and my sister, my brother-in-law, my nieces. And so that was a really good time. I got very spoiled on my birthday by everyone. It was so very sweet. So yeah, I just want to spread the birthday love to these books. So the first book I'm going to talk about is one that I think is just like one that you would think of when you think of the 90s is Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton. I'm not sure how to say his last name. And I think this book, yeah, like this copy was probably printed in 1990 as well, because it's a little bit beaten up, kind of yellowish. It's starting to look its age, we'll just say that. But I never read this before, so I just recently read it and finished it. My birthday hat is coming off. Let me fix that. There we go. So I recently read and finished this book, and I don't think I've given it a rating yet, but I think I would definitely give this one like a 4 or 4.5. It was really fun to read. Of course, I already kind of knew the story from watching the film growing up. And so this was published in 1990, same as when I was born. So this book is turning 31 this year. And the movie that came out, like the original movie, came out in 1993. So it was a really fast turnaround from the book being published to the movie coming out. And I mean, clearly it was one that really took off. It says there was more than 5 million copies in print. So it was kind of a big deal. And of course, it was just absolutely fun to read. Fun, kind of thrillerish, but not too scary. And basically, if you don't know, we follow a couple of different characters in this story, but it all revolves around the creation of Jurassic Park, which is a park where the owner, Mr. Hammond, I believe his name is, he has collected DNA from dinosaurs. And essentially he has hired like a genetic team to recreate these dinosaurs. So we follow a couple of like archaeologists that are going there with the purpose of like making sure the park is safe. It's not. And there's like a kind of shady lawyer who's there, who's trying to just kind of, keep the interest of the investors in mind as he's looking at the park. There's, and I won't say who in case you haven't seen the movie or read the book, but there's somebody who's kind of coming in there with bad intentions of maybe taking things for their own gain. And then we have the owner's grandchildren. It's either his grandchildren or his like niece and nephew have come to visit the park as well. And so it's just kind of a recipe for disaster. Oh, and my favorite character, can't forget him, Malcolm, who is a mathematician, but also kind of like a philosopher. I feel like, the author was getting a lot of points out there of just his own thoughts and feelings through the character of Malcolm. So I kind of enjoyed that. But it was a lot of fun to read. It had a lot of action. You just are constantly like not knowing if something's going to go wrong and, you're going to get eaten by a dinosaur. So there was some differences between this and the movie, which I was, excited to kind of read this and then see those differences because, I had no idea that it was anything different, after just having watched the movie. But I read this, and then me and my husband recently watched the original Jurassic Park, and it was really fun to rewatch that. It was actually a lot scarier than I thought it would be for a movie made in 1993. It was decently terrifying, but I did really enjoy this. The other thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of the books is, how did I know that this book, or how would somebody have known if they didn't see the publication date? How would they have known that it was written in the 90s or 1990 specifically? Oh, my hat's trying to fall off again. So basically, I knew that this was written in 1990 because they give so much computer program description. Like, you can tell like it's a big deal. Computers are like something that's very, unique and special, and, they're not in every home and basically in everybody's hands, right? It's just kind of like a, wow, look at this computer and everything that it can do. There was also, they were talking about like X-ray technology that was like a new cutting edge, kind of like crazy thing where you can see an X-ray into the ground and that could tell them, the archaeologist, where to dig and things like that. But I liked how, the archaeologists are kind of like, yeah, it's just kind of like a fad thing. Like, this isn't really going to stick, and like technology is never gonna, be able to do all these amazing things where, we realize now, oh yeah, it has. And that program was called CAST. I'm not sure if it's a real program or not. And then there was some, nobody had cell phones, of course, but also, there was like some tracking system issues where they were trying to track the dinosaurs, and they were saying that it wasn't possible to track them in certain circumstances and things and stuff that, it's like, okay, we would be able to figure that out in 2021, but not necessarily in 1990. But I did really enjoy this. I think it holds up to the test of time because it is such a unique story where, like, obviously we don't have any theme parks with dinosaurs, and hopefully we won't because of this book. It has showed us the error of that potential mess. All right, so that was Jurassic Park. Let's go on to the next one. All right, the next book I want to talk about is Wish You Were Here. This is a Miss Murphy mystery, and this was written by Rita Mae Brown and Sneaky Pie Brown. Sneaky Pie is actually the author's cat. And this involves lots of characters who are cats that are helping to solve mysteries. Need I say more about this book? I really don't need to. Pick it up. It was awesome. It was so cute. It's been a while since I read it, but my sister actually gave this to me for my last birthday when I was turning 30, because she bought me a bunch of books that were from the 90s, because I was turning 30 and I was born in 1990. So, but now this book is turning 31. And it was really interesting. It's set in Crozet, Virginia, and it's like, your typical small town, and we follow, her name is Harry. That's not her real name, but it's her nickname. And she has a cat and a corgi who we get to see their thoughts throughout the book. And they're kind of very like smart and witty, and they know, exactly how to like look into things, and, they're solving mysteries. But so Harry works as the, what do they call her? A post mistress. So she works like at a post office, and she collects the mail and things. we can see the 90s in this, but it's for a small town, and so she's kind of passing out the mail and things, but she's also like a little bit nosy, and people go there to kind of like gossip and whatever, and so she's looking at some of the mail, and she starts seeing these postcards being sent with like a picture of like a tombstone on it, and it says like, "Wish you were here," and that's all it says. And so she doesn't think about it, but then people start getting murdered, right? They start finding people who have been murdered, and she's kind of like, wait, that person got a postcard and this person got a postcard. And so she starts kind of like making those connections. And her cat and her corgi, and her cat's named Miss Burfy and her corgi's named Tucker, and they want to, of course, protect their owner. They know what's going on. They're listening in, and they want to help protect her. So they're starting to like help her solve the mystery and talking to some of the other cats and dogs and animals and things to help to solve the mystery. I absolutely love the animals in this book, getting to see their thoughts, but then also like they act like a cat and a dog. Like they're running around and just like getting into stuff they're not supposed to, and like playing and like fighting with each other. And it's just so cute. So cute. So let's talk about, how did we know that this was a 90s book? I think you already, heard the one thing about the Post Mistress. Obviously, postcards. People still send postcards, but I feel like it was more popular back in the day a little bit. And then the postal pickup in this town, and maybe this is just a small town thing, or maybe it's something more indicative of the time period, but when you go and pick up your mail, that's a place to gossip and like kind of get all the news and the information. People aren't on their phones like just texting each other or like on Twitter what's going on. No, they've got to go get the news in a more old-fashioned way. And it also had some stuff like some social stigmas just about the woman's place in a marriage and like divorce and those kinds of things, which again, maybe, that's more indicative of the place that they were living in, the small town vibes. But also I think that, the time period affected that. And they do mention the movie, which there might be more cultural references, but they do mention the movie like Field of Dreams, which I feel like is a very 90s movie. I remember watching that as a kid. So anyway, this book is turning 31. So happy birthday, Wish You Were Here. All right, so the next book that is turning 31, and shout out to my sister, she also gave me this book for my last birthday, which was when I turned 30, and she gave me books from the 90s, which was just so awesome. Shout out to Jennifer, thank you. So this is Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett's Good Omens, and it says the nice and accurate prophecies of Agnes Nutter, witch. And it does involve a lot of the prophecies in this, which are just super cool. I think I've talked about this book on my channel before. Basically, and it's been a little while since I read it, we've got Aziraphale, not sure if I'm saying that name right, he's an angel, and then we've got Crowley, who is a demon, and we kind of see like them bumping into each other throughout history and throughout time and kind of becoming friends, but I don't think they actually want to admit that they're friends because they should be, completely different from one another and doing different things. But they do kind of become friends, and they kind of like are helping each other out a little bit, especially because they know that the world is going to end. Prophecies that Agnes Nutter wrote suggest that it's going to end, and it actually says it's going to end next Saturday, right? And so they know this, and they kind of decide, we really like the world, we like living here, we like the things that are here. Maybe we should try and prevent this from happening. So they kind of like are working together on that. It starts with the Antichrist being born into the world as well, and there's kind of a little mix-up that happens there. So I don't want to say too much about that, but yeah, this was pretty hilarious. Like even some of the format stuff was just hilarious because they gave you all of these little footnotes that make it seem like, you know, a realistic, like, okay, you need extra information on this topic, but of course it's all completely fictional. I had no idea that this was written in the 90s. I wouldn't have guessed that at all. I know there's a TV show that's out now, like a TV series that you can watch. And I think this one's definitely like one that you could read at any time. And it's just like, yeah, okay. Anybody could have written this at any time. You wouldn't just assume that this was from the 90s. So I had a hard time finding like references that I thought, you know, okay, you know, this shows that the people, excuse me, because it was two people who wrote it, that they wrote it in the 90s. But I found a few. So Crowley the Demon mentions some of Queen's greatest hits, listening to those. Okay, 90s, or I guess late 80s, early 90s. I'm not really sure. They also have some mentions of Elvis being alive, which I know, you know, that's still something I think that people might mention or talk about, but I feel like it was probably a bit more of a popular theory, I guess we'll call it, back in the 90s. And, I remember reading about a character in this whose name is Adam. I won't give you too much information about them, but he's like 11 or 12 or something, and he's going like outside with his friends, and they're going to like their clubhouse, and they're like playing around and playing make-believe and all this stuff. And I think that that's very, you know, indicative of time period before, you know, the early 2000s, when people have like, you know, phones and computers, and kids are more about being inside and social media and things. Maybe not all kids, but it just, reading those parts made me really think about my childhood growing up as a 90s kid, running around and just kind of, you know, staying out until it got dark and you had to go home. So let's go on to the next book. All right, the next book that is celebrating its 31st birthday is The Stand by Stephen King. Now, if you're like, oh, wait, no, that's not celebrating its, you know, its 31st birthday, you're correct. The original was actually published in 1978, but this edition that I'm currently holding was actually published in 1990, and this is the complete and uncut edition. So when it was originally released, 1978, you know, Stephen King, I guess he was happy with it, but not totally happy with it. He really wanted to include a lot of the story that wasn't previously published. So he made some changes to like cultural references to make sure that it fit into, you know, 1990. He changed things and he released it, adding a bunch to the book. I think it was like something like 400 pages that he added to the book, and updated it to re-release in 1990. So I'm still celebrating this book, and its birthday for the complete and uncut edition. So I've talked about this book before on my channel. I think it is the longest book that I currently own, and have read. And, I believe I gave this like 4 or 5 stars. I don't remember. I read it at the end of last year, 2020. But this book is all about this very dangerous, very deadly, very contagious virus that has been manufactured in, like a laboratory. And it somehow gets out. I won't tell you exactly how, even though that happens at the beginning. But it's released into the world, and we get to see throughout some of the characters it spread to other people and how it's impacting them. It's something crazy, like 95% of people in the world basically die from this. And so you're left with very few people. But there are a ton of characters in this, and they're all characters that we're following that are obviously surviving and having to deal with the effects and the aftermath of everything that happened. And so, yeah, we get tons of different characters, and basically, like, the world is kind of being pulled between these two different kind of supernatural forces that we find in this kind of like post-apocalyptic world. And one of them is like good and one of them is evil. And so people are drawn to, you know, one force or the other. They see these people or these entities in their dreams and then, you know, are kind of led to go and find them. So we end up, you know, a lot of the characters meet each other kind of early on. And so, but all of the storylines do come together. And it was a surprisingly fast-paced read for it being as long as it is, because there's so much action and there's so many different stories. I kind of felt like it was like the experience of reading a Game of Thrones book, because you have so many characters and so much happening. Sorry, my birthday hat wants to just dive off of my head. Oh, and there it goes. Okay, so I'm going to put my hat back on, but I want to tell you guys about some of the things that kind of clue you into this being a book that was written in the 90s, and there's not a lot. Honestly, this book definitely stands up to, it stands, I get it. So it stands up to, like, you know, the test of time, because it's, again, I think I said this for Jurassic Park too, it's like, this is a world that we've never experienced. You know, we're dealing with a pandemic right now, but it obviously doesn't have the impacts that this, they call it Captain Trips, that this disease had. So some of the things that helped me to know that this was a book written in the 90s, obviously no cell phones, no computers, kind of the same things I've been saying. One of the characters talks about using a typewriter and typing out kind of like a, you know, their thoughts and their life and all of that. They mention, I don't remember which character it was, but they mentioned seeing Johnny Carson on TV. There are some derogatory marks that were used to describe people with cognitive differences used within the book. So, you know, and that's something I feel like that has thankfully changed since the 90s. So, but it's a world that I think we can still, you know, read about and understand. It's not like lost in history, because it is so vastly different from anything that we've experienced or seen before. So that was The Stand by Stephen King. The complete and uncut version is turning 31. So the last birthday book, the book that's turning 31, actually I have not finished. And this is actually a bind up of 3 novels, which is The Cat Who Talked to Ghosts, The Cat Who Knew a Cardinal, and The Cat Who Lived High, all by Lillian Jackson Braun. I am currently reading The Cat Who Talked to Ghost. I'm not finished with it yet, but I wanted to go ahead and film this video before it gets too much past my birthday. So I'm currently reading again The Cat Who Talked to Ghost, and it's really good so far. Our main character, he's got a really crazy name. It's like Jim Quilrinian. I don't know. They call him Quill, which I'm glad that he's got a shortened name because that's a lot. But Quill is our main character, and he's like this extremely wealthy guy who kind of just lives with basic things. He doesn't, you know, he doesn't want or need a whole lot, but he is like well known in the town, and he writes for a newspaper. He writes like a weekly little edition to the newspaper, and he gets a phone call early on in the book from Miss Cobb, who she owns or like helps to run or maintain the museum in town. That's, you know, it's a popular place to go, and a lot of people know her and care about her. But he gets this call from her, and she's freaking out because she's like, I hear all these strange noises. You know, is there somebody in the house? And she's just like, you know, inconsolable. Like, she's just so upset. And so he says, okay, I'll be right there. I'm coming. So he drives there, and by the time he gets there, all the lights are turned off in her house. And he goes in and he finds her mysteriously dead on the floor, and she looks like in shock, right? And so, everybody thinks that it's been a heart attack because she did have heart problems. But Quill is kind of thinking maybe it's something a little bit more. So they need someone to watch the museum. And so Quill moves into the museum to kind of help take care of it while they're trying to get somebody else more permanent in there. Now, how the cats come into this is he has 2 Siamese cats that obviously move into the house with him. And so Quill is kind of like looking around. He's trying to figure out where these noises could have come from. What was it? He is thinking about, could this be something supernatural or ghostly, going on? But he's not really sure yet. We are getting other backstories, and we're getting other things about another character that he's recently met, and she's got some mysterious kind of ghostly things happening as well. But I'm enjoying hearing all these other stories, and I know in my mind that a lot of the details that I'm getting probably will all add up to solving the mystery. But it's like at this point, I'm just like, I don't even know what I should be looking out for. The Siamese cats, though, one of them, its name is Coco, and it is acting very strangely ever since they moved into the house. And a lot of it has to, well, I won't give you guys any of the clues, but it's acting very strangely, and it's trying to kind of like, I think, get Quill's attention about, the mystery and things. Now, unlike the book I talked about, Wish You Were Here, we don't get the cats' thoughts and perspectives. They're not talking, cats or anything. We just get to see their actions and kind of how Quill responds to them, and try and figure out, how do these cats, know what's going on? Do they know what's going on? Are they trying to give us clues about the murder, and things like that? So, but I really, really enjoy it so far. And I think I'm going to enjoy the ending. I can't wait to see how everything kind of comes together to solve this possibly supernatural mystery. So I'm really enjoying this. So how do we know that this book was written in the 90s? There's a couple of things that give it away. And again, I haven't finished it yet, but some of the things I've seen is obviously there's no cell phone. When Miss Cobb dies and Quill is on his way to go see her, he, makes the phone call to her, or she calls him, and then he leaves, and it's like 45 minutes that it takes to get there, and he, of course, doesn't have any means to contact her, so there's no cell phones, which would have been very helpful. He uses a dictionary when he's writing his article, which, people still use dictionaries, but mainly they look up stuff online or use like an online thesaurus. One of the characters, it was actually Miss Cobb in a letter, she was telling her son about how they cataloged, or they computerized the catalog for the museum. And that was like a big deal, and it was like, ooh, I can't believe, they paid for that and they got that done. But of course, there's no like talk of the internet because it wasn't a thing yet. And then, they talk about the bulbs in like the chandelier looking like candles and kind of having that flickering effect, which I think is a very 90s kind of style thing that I remember seeing that I don't think I really see anymore. So anyway, happy birthday to the cat who talked to ghost. Yay. Happy birthday to all of the books. They are all turning 31, just like me. And whether or not you think that they stand up to the years, read them. They are all excellent in their own right. And yeah, so happy birthday to me and to the books. Mwah. All right, you guys, I'll see you next time. Have a great day or night or evening or morning, whenever you're watching this. Bye.